Good morning, everybody. We are live. Welcome to the 2022 Western States 100, the most iconic, the oldest, and the most special race in North America. We've got an incredible lineup of guests joining us here this morning for our pre-race live interview show. My name is Dylan Bowman, joined, of course, by my friend and often collaborator, Corrine Malcolm. Corrine, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I missed you on the bike path this morning, I think, doing separate workouts.
We both snuck in our little exercise before doing an ultra marathon of conversating. Welcome to our audience. Thank you all for joining us both in person and live on the Western States YouTube channel. For those who are watching us digitally, this is very important. Smash that subscribe button right now on the Western States 100 YouTube channel. I've been told that that's very important for the success of our race day live stream. So if you're watching us live on the Western States YouTube channel, please do go ahead and subscribe. We are joined by our first guest, the top returning female finisher, rocking that F2 bib, Miss Ruth Croft from New Zealand. Ruth, it's great to see you again. Welcome back to the United States of America for your second running of the Western States. You finished second last year, running the fifth fastest time in the race's history. Maybe give us a quick debrief on last year's race, or just how you're feeling about your performance here with 12 months of perspective.
So yeah, pretty much last year. Is that on? It's not on? Is it?
It doesn't have an on switch.
So after Western States last year, I pretty much said I would not be back running 100 miles again, but here I am. I think I learned quite a lot from the experience last year on ways I could come back and do it better, and ways I've changed my preparation. And so, yeah, I'm happy, healthy, and in a good space.
Yeah, I think we joked at the house earlier this week that you were like, absolutely not, one and done, back again. I'm intrigued. I think many of us might be. You've been over in the States for a little while this year, kind of getting in some training. I'm wondering if you can speak to how that's been, spending time in Flagstaff and then coming over to California to get on the course in preparation this year.
Yeah, so last year I felt like I was quite rushed because I did a big roadblock and then only had pretty much essentially 3 weeks of training in the States. And so this year I wanted to come over earlier, so I went to Flagstaff beginning of May and spent a month there, because obviously you get heat and altitude, and was staying with our teammates Abby and Quartus Hall. And then after the month I came to California, and I've spent a bit of time on the course, but not a ton. Yeah.
Ruth, I'm curious. We'll do this back and forth. Ruth, I'm curious, like I said, you finished, ran the fifth fastest time in the race's history, finishing second overall behind Beth Pascal, the 2021 champion. You were also ninth overall last year in your 100-mile debut. Curious what you attribute to such a successful debut at what is a iconic, though very challenging distance.
So part of it, I think, was obviously the roadblock that I did in New Zealand. I think you have to be able to run on this course, and I think by the time I got to Forest Hill, I hadn't cooked myself, and so I still had the leg speed to finish strongly. And then also probably Paul Lind gave me a lot of tips, and so that helped. And then I think last year was just such a hot day, and I just did all the little things right, and I think it was just, good management of myself and getting to Forest Hill in one piece.
So while this is arguably an individual sport, it's also, in a way, a team sport. And you've got two teammates in the race as well. What does it mean, two female teammates in the race as well? What does it mean to you to be going into this race running for yourself, but also knowing that you're going to have two people, one of whom you've trained a lot with in the past 8 weeks, kind of heading into this race?
Yeah, it's always good if you've got your teammates, and especially females. And last year I spent a lot of time in the first 50 with Emily. And I think it keeps it fun, and we can just support each other out there.
Ruth, you just touched on it a second ago. We're working out the audio kinks here, folks. Bear with us. So, you just touched on it a second ago, but you mentioned that last year you did sort of a road training block leading into the race. You're one of the most versatile athletes around, able to compete on any distance, on
Do I have sound? Maybe.
Okay. So my question is, I think it's just, you just touched on it earlier. This is a course that you do need to run on. I'm curious sort of if you want to expand on that in terms of your build up this year. Does it mirror what you did last year with a roadblock building up to it to try and enhance your speed, and what value you see in that as it's applied to this specific course?
We lost sound. Is it working? Okay, so I head back to New Zealand in November and December, and then I pretty much switch straight to the road. So I do, just a lot of sessions on the road and long sessions, but this year I did a lot more trail as well. So I'd still do the odd long run in the hills, which I hadn't done last year. It was just strictly road. And also I feel I did a lot more adventuring in New Zealand. So just long days out in the mountains, so that when that transition came back to getting fully on trails, it wasn't as steep of a learning curve. Yeah.
I'm curious, given kind of that first 100-mile experience last year, obviously you said you've changed some things, and I'm wondering, we're looking at another fairly hot year this year. What are you going into this race as your mindset to take on the conditions of the day?
That hopefully it won't be as hot as last year. I think, it may be a bit cooler, but you can't get complacent out there. And then again, it's just getting to Forest Hill and doing all the little things right and not worrying what everyone else is doing. And I'll probably be racing a similar race strategy and keeping it pretty conservative.
Ruth, I talked to your partner, Martin, yesterday. I think he paced you the last 20 miles on the course last year. I think he plans to do the same thing. But what he said, and I don't know if this is inside information, but he said that you struggled mightily in the last 20K last year. Of course, the result doesn't necessarily indicate that, but curious what your takeaways were from that, what you think that was caused by, and how you plan to improve over that last half marathon.
Well, at that point I had run 140K, so I think I just mentally checked out a lot and was kind of really resistant to going into that pain cave. And so this year I think, I know what to expect. Last year I didn't, because it was my first 100-miler. And so when it gets to that point, he said he's going to give me a lot more tough love. So I think I'll be ready to kind of keep my foot on the gas and not step back so much.
Looking at this race and looking at this field, I think Dylan and I are probably famous for saying this is the most competitive race ever for every single race we talk about. But I'm wondering, wearing that F2 bib, coming back in as the top returning contender, how are you dealing with kind of putting that aside potentially and just focusing on your own day out there?
Yeah, I got second last year, but this year that means nothing. It's it's another year. And so I'm going in there just focusing on myself, and I don't put too much expectation or carry that from other people. And for me, the main thing is I've got to the start line, I'm happy and I'm healthy, and I just want to race hard.
Ruth, let's talk about your season so far this year. I think you pretty much have just done one sort of 50-kilometer race, just two 50-kilometer races. So tell us sort of what you've been up to both competitively and what you've been focusing on in your training preparation.
Yeah, so I went back to New Zealand and I focused on Kepler, which is a race in New Zealand on a great walk, and it's a 60K. And it was early January, and so the goal, I wanted to try for the course record, but I missed out on it by 3 minutes. But I learned a lot that day as well, because I think I had all the splits and I was just focusing on trying to get the course record, and it actually quite stressed me out, and I don't feel like I relaxed into the race or anything. And then after that, with COVID in New Zealand, everything was kind of shut down race-wise until the end of March, where I did a 55K in Dunedin called Three Peaks, and it was just off a training week, no taper or anything. And then pretty much have just come over to the US from beginning of May.
So while you are racing there, you'll be joined by 384 other runners this weekend from all walks of life, from all, some that have been putting in for 7-8 years now, who are maybe watching live right now or watching online. What would, having had this experience last year, coming back into this race this year, what advice would you give to one of those other 384 competitors out there?
Just have fun. I think in the world of ultra running, we think it's quite a big deal. But in the big scheme of it, yeah, I think the main thing is just step back and be grateful for this experience that we get to travel by foot from Olympic Valley to Auburn, and it's a crazy sport. It's kind of weird in a lot of ways, but yeah, for me, it's just have fun out there.
Terrific. Maybe last question for you, Ruth. You've sort of alluded to this a little while ago, and just talking about your strategy from last year and how you might implement something similar. It was such a well-executed race, but finishing second overall, having the 5th fastest time ever, wearing that F2 bib, maybe comes with a little temptation to be a little bit more aggressive in your racing style. You talked about advice that Paul Lind has given you. Talk a little bit about your strategy and about your mindset coming into the day.
My mindset is, I'm pretty relaxed, to be honest. I know I've done all the work and I'm in the best possible position I can be, and my strategy is pretty similar as last year. Like, go out pretty slow, run pretty slow, eat, drink, stay cool, and then get to Forest Hill and then see how fast I can run.
Sweet as, mate. Big round of applause for Ruth Croft, F2, your top returning women's runner at this weekend's Western States 100. Thank you so much, Ruth. We'll be back in just a couple minutes with Hayden Hawks. Stick with us. Okay, everybody, welcome back to the 2022 Western States 100 pre-race interview show. My name is Dylan Bowman with Corrine Malcolm. We are joined by the pride of Cedar City, Utah, Mr. Hayden Hawks. Before we get to you, Hayden, just a quick reminder, I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but if you are watching us live on the Western States 100 YouTube channel and you have a question for our esteemed guests, please do get in the chat. I have the live stream up on my computer here, and I'll do my best to pull some questions out for our guests. So we want to make it interactive, and we think this afternoon we might have a mic that we can pass around to our live audience as well. So anyway, thanks everybody for being here, including you, Hayden. It's really great to see you. You're coming back after a tough but proud finish at last year's race. Maybe first of all, just give us a quick retrospective of sort of what you learned in your first 100-mile finish here at North America's most important race.
Yeah, I think the number one thing I learned is it gets hot out there and you definitely need to hydrate. I definitely fell off on the hydration, I would say. I had a great race for 92 miles, ran with Jim for 40-ish miles, and then kind of ran on my own for a while. And I got a little too cocky, maybe, thinking like, oh, I can catch Jim. I need to go light, and I only took one bottle with me out of Forest Hill instead of two, and it just wasn't enough. I thought I could get in between the aid stations fast enough, but I didn't take into account the heat and how much it slows you down. And I got to mile 92 and body just completely shut down because of dehydration. Had to sit at Pointed Rocks, so mile 94, it took me like 2 hours to get to 94, and then I sat at 94 for another 2 hours. And luckily was able to walk it out and finish 8th male, 11th overall. And so happy I'm back, after that. But I learned a lot about that. I mean, my fitness was great, everything else was great, so really there's not a lot to work on this year. Just drink.
So I don't know, is it that mic? What mic is it? I don't think, my mic's not on. Are any of the mics on? My mic's on. Okay, perfect. So a lot of runners talk about running their own race, right? And the gun goes off and things happen. But I think what I really admire about you and what I really like about your race interviews and how you race is that while it's your own race, it's also like you want to be at the front end of things and you're going for that win. And I think you're very, upfront about that. And I'm wondering how you're taking that in to a race like this year where, Jim's not going to be there potentially with you or off the front. And so how has your mindset changed? Has it changed going into this year's race?
Not really. To be honest with you, I feel like I ran my own race last year. Everybody's own race is different. Some people, they have to go out a little slower. Some people, can sustain a faster effort, and I feel like I can, just from my background and how I train and everything else. Honestly, I'm just going to run my own race this year, and whatever that means. If I'm in the front, great. If I'm behind some people, that's fine too. I've been really dialing that in this year. I did an effort in the Grand Canyon a few weeks ago, rim to rim, where I really was dialing in my perceived effort, my heart rate and everything else. And I feel like I ran my own effort there. And I worked on my fueling and everything else, and I dialed everything in. So I feel like if I can just do that, this weekend, it should be a good day.
Hayden, you and I had a chance to catch up last weekend at the Broken Arrow Sky Race. Your coach, Robbie Britton, was running. You were there sort of crewing and supporting him. And what you mentioned to me is that you're feeling a lot better this year, both in terms of your fitness, but also your freshness. Maybe talk a little bit about your training, your preparation, and how you think you've been able to arrive here in Olympic Valley with a little bit more energy this year.
Yeah, Robbie Britton, he's my coach, and so we've been focusing, a lot this year on just being strategic on how we've placed the long runs. Not overdoing it. Maybe I overdid it a little bit last year. Came in a little cooked. I still felt really fit, but maybe just not as fresh and healthy as I should have been. This year I'm feeling completely different. I feel really fresh. I feel really healthy. Feel like last year I was a little concerned with distance. This year I'm not concerned at all with the distance. I know I can handle it and I know I can do it. And so yeah, I think experience helps, but also learning from our training and everything last year, we've been able to really dial things in this year. And yeah, I'll use a British phrase. I feel all right.
That's great. So I think athletes come into Western States, and it's fairly early in the season, although I feel like race 12 months a year at this point. There's a big race happening every single month somewhere in the world. Can you talk a little bit to how you and your coach this year put together, be it efforts in the canyon, be it getting to a race line, be it putting in big just training sessions solo in order to kind of build your confidence for like your race strategy this year?
Yeah, I feel like last year maybe my block was a little too long. And I raced a little too much last year. I think I had maybe 4 races going into Western States last year, and that was maybe just a little too much. So this year I've only had two races going into this year, and I haven't raced for 16 weeks. So I think that's good. I always do really well off of not racing a ton. When I had my performance at JFK, I hadn't raced for over 4 months and felt really good going into JFK. Felt really fresh. And so honestly, we kind of looked over and we're like, okay, let's do a 10-week training block. I took 1 week almost completely off, and then I've had a 10-week training block that's been periodized, building up the miles, hitting workouts and long runs specifically to meet the demands of this race. And so yeah, it's all just come together really nicely, and feel like it's gonna be a good day. I'm really excited to go out there and show what I've done, and honestly, I don't feel like the training could have gone any better.
So we've mentioned your coach, Robbie, a couple times. He's actually sitting right over here. We went for a run together yesterday, and he alluded to the fact that you and 3-time men's champion Jim Walmsley had recently spoken. And I think this would be something that would be very interesting, not only for Corrine and myself, but for our entire viewing audience. So maybe without putting you on the spot or making you betray any confidences, we'd love to hear what was said in that conversation, what kind of advice Jim gave. This just want to be a fly on the wall of this conversation between 2 great champions.
Yeah, me and Jim are good friends. We've been good friends for years now, and we're also really strong competitors. We push each other, and we had a great time last year, running that 40 miles together. We talked a lot and went through a lot of things, and then maybe 6 weeks ago I ran in the canyon with him. We did a cowboy loop in the canyon, and right before he left for France, we had some great discussions, and I'm not gonna reveal everything because he gave me a lot of advice on how to run this course, where to push, what to do. I picked his brain a lot about it, and he was open in sharing it with me, which was really cool. A lot of people would, especially 3-time champion course record holder, might be like, I'm not going to give you my secrets, but he did. He gave me a lot of his secrets, and so I think that helps a lot. Also, I had my best day ever in the canyon that day running with him. Climbed out of the canyon faster than I've ever climbed out before. And I remember one thing, Jim, when we finished the climb, and Jim was like, "You are fit, man. Like, you are fit enough to win Western States." Like, he's like, "You're more fit than I was going in last year." And it gave me a lot of confidence to know that. So.
What an endorsement.
Yes.
Not bad.
Stamp of approval there for sure. Okay, so I've got probably one more question here, and it's about risk and reward. And you talked about, only leaving Forest Hill with a bottle last year. Risk, but potential high reward. As a racer, I feel like you're kind of constantly threading that needle between like what risks you can take and what rewards you can reap from that. Obviously, you've made adjustments going into this year, trying maybe to fine-tune that line. Has there been anything that you've thought about for this race? You don't need to tell us the risks you're going to take, but being able to balance that as a runner?
Yeah, I think I've always been willing to take risks. I'm not afraid to take risks. I'm not afraid to get uncomfortable, and I actually kind of enjoy it, to be honest with you. It's kind of weird, but I definitely won't take the risk of not taking an extra bottle with me again. That was definitely a dumb risk to take, and I feel like carrying a little extra weight is always a good thing. It's always helped me in any race I've done. But yeah, like last year, you know, people will say it's risky to go out with Jim Walmsley, but the thing is like, I'm not just gonna let Jim go. Like, I'm not here to take second place, I'm here to win the race, you know, and my thing is like, if I let Jim go, I'm never gonna see him again. You know, he knows exactly how to run this course, he's one of the best in the world, like, I'm not willing to let, you know, do that. And so this year, it's kind of the same thing. I'm not willing to settle for second place, you know, I'm here to win, but that might, the race might play out a little differently, you know, than last year. You never know. But I'm always going to put myself in a position to win, whatever that means. And so, yeah, like, I think I learned a lot from last year. Experience is key, especially with this race. You know, most of the greats, it took them at least 3 years to win this race. You know, it takes, you have to learn and you have to get that experience, especially on a course like Western States. And so, but I feel like last year was a good learning year for me.
It's such a good point. This course and this race is such a puzzle. It's so hard to put together. But expanding on this topic of strategy and Corrine's last question, you've sort of have a reputation of racing aggressively. Like, you like putting the pressure on the field. It's a dangerous thing to do, even though when it pays off spectacularly. You've become one of the greatest of our generation employing this strategy. But it got you in trouble last year. Curious to hear you talk about your strategy for this year's race. You say you want to be in the mix. Do you want to put pressure on the field? I mean, because what I'm thinking is like an athlete of your caliber could sort of let other people make mistakes and then assert yourself rather than try and assert yourself from the beginning. How are you thinking about that?
Yeah, I think, you know, I have the talent and ability to run my own race and kind of control the race if I need to. I feel like I can go out there and have a good day and still win this race. You know, other people, you know, there's other guys that can do that as well. But other people, they're going to have an amazing day to win this race. And so I'm just going to do what I need to do, right? Like, I'm going to focus on that, you know. Yeah, I've been known to go out fast, and I've been trying to dial that in to be a little bit, you know, just be within myself a little bit more. Because, you know, when you come from a track and field background like I do, and you've run 28 minutes for 10K and, you know, sub 14 for 5K, you know, going out hard in a race like this doesn't feel hard, right? It doesn't feel hard at all. It feels pretty easy. Like it's you know, you're talking and having a good time. But it's different when you're running 100 miles. And so I've been really trying to focus on that effort in training. You know, my easy days have become easier, maybe not as fast as they've been in the past, but that's because I'm trying to dial in that pace and that effort. And I've been working a lot with heart rate as well, just trying to keep that under control and have some parameters to go off of. That way, like, I can conserve myself for 100 miles, you know. And so, yeah, I would just say I'm just really excited to go out there and see, you know, I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't, but I can't control other people. I can't control what's going to happen. I can only control what I can do. You know, I've talked about this in podcasts and stuff. I'm a big fan of Tom Brady, and that's what he talks about all the time is like, I can only control the next game. You know, I can only control what I can do. And if I try to focus on what other people are doing or focus on, you know, the Super Bowl when I'm in the regular season, he said, that's not what I should do.
I'm on to Seattle is what Tom Brady would say. Exactly. We're on to Seattle.
Exactly.
Are there any questions in our
chat? Let's get to the chat here. There's a bunch of questions about sort of your heat acclimatization. We expect this to be a pretty warm year. I think the high this morning when I checked in Auburn, forecasted for Saturday, was going to be about 97 degrees. Robbie told me you went and ran in Auburn a couple of days ago. I know you've been in the sauna a little bit. Talk about your heat acclimatization strategy and maybe your heat management on race day.
Yeah, we've done a lot of research into that, you know, been researching on other ways that, you know, athletes from other sports have heat acclimatized, you know, and so we've been using some of those strategies. Also, I live in southern Utah. It's pretty hot there. It's pretty similar to the weather here, actually. Like, you know, even in Cedar City, it was 95 degrees the other day, and that's at 6,000 feet elevation, so it feels a lot hotter than that. And so I've been doing a lot of my runs in those temps. You know, I grew up in St. George, Utah. It gets up to 100, 110 sometimes. So, you know, I'm not a stranger to the heat, but that being said, I know I have to acclimatize, and I've been doing some strategies with that. You know, the run in the Grand Canyon I did 3 weeks ago was part of that, you know, learning how to, because at the top of the Grand Canyon it could be 30, 40 degrees. The bottom of the Grand Canyon, it was actually, on the day I ran, it was 104 degrees. So learning how to, you know, go from cold to hot and then back to cool or whatever, you know, that helps a lot for a course like this. So yeah, the heat acclimatization has gone really well.
I was just going to say, is there, listening to you talk, which I love these interviews, is there anything about this race that scares you?
Not this year. Last year, yes. The distance was, I was like, I don't know if I can finish 100 miles. I never have, right? But now I know, and that was part of why I finished last year. I could have given up at 92 miles and just dropped out, but I wasn't willing to do that, and I knew I was coming back to this race, and so I knew I needed to finish. You know, mentally, I knew I needed to finish 100 miles, so I knew I could do that. I'm not too scared, you know. I would say I feel pretty confident about most things. You know, I've looked over all the demands of the race, and I've trained for every demand of the race. Why should I be scared, right? If I've prepared properly, why should I be scared? And that's how I look at it, is I have prepared properly. You know, there could be things that pop up that I can't control, but that can happen in any race, that can happen in any part of life. And, you know, you shouldn't be scared to live life, right?
Don't be scared to live life. Maybe last question for you, Hayden. Let's talk about your season. I think you started off with a tough go at Trans Gran Canaria. You won a sort of local 50K at home in Utah. And looking at your career, again, it's a resume that any of us would die to have. You know, you've been a champion of a bunch of different races. You've run some of the most amazing performances in ultra history. But if you have one vulnerability, it's over the long courses. Of course, you've won Lavaredo, you've won CCC, but you've had a tough go here at Western States, a tough go at Trans Gran Canaria a couple of times. How can you take your talent and extend it over the 100-mile distance?
Yeah, you know, I still feel like a rookie, to be honest with you. You know, I've won a lot of races, but I'm not, you know, I'm happy with it, but I'm not content. And I feel like I still got a lot more to show, and I feel like there's a lot more in me that will come out in the future years. It's one of the reasons I started working with Robbie. To be honest with you, he's a master at long distance races, 24-hour champs and stuff like that. And so I was like, well, I need to have somebody in my corner that understands these races a little bit better to help me to be able to master this race, you know. And I feel like I've gotten to a point where I've almost mastered the 50K, 80K, 100K distance. And this 100-mile distance is a challenge for me, but it's something that intrigues me and inspires me. And it's something that I will master. You know, it might take a little longer because it's a longer race, but at some point I'll get there.
Love it. Big round of applause for Hayden Hawks, everybody. Hayden, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks to our audience, both live and on YouTube. We will be back in just a little bit with the 100-mile world record holder, the great Camille Herron. Okay, welcome back, everybody. This is the 2022 Western States 100 pre-race interview show. Maybe just to reset a little bit, my name is Dylan Bowman, joined by Corrine Malcolm. We are broadcasting live from the heart of Olympic Valley. We've got a great live audience here, and a big thank you to everybody who's joining us on YouTube. We are joined by one of the greatest ultra runners of all time, the amazing Camille Herron, the 100-mile world record holder. Camille, welcome back to Western States. Big round of applause, thank you. Camille, your resume in this sport is absolutely ridiculous, but if there's one bit of kryptonite that you've had, it's been the Western States 100. So let's start there. Maybe just talk about your history with this race, why it's been a challenge for you, and how you're feeling coming in for what I think is your fourth attempt now.
Yeah, I guess some of the best runners here, it's taken them a couple of times to get it right. So, looking at Ann Trayson and Jim Walmsley and knowing that, sometimes it is our kryptonite. Sometimes it just takes a lot of time and, patience to just keep showing up and trying to put those pieces together like a puzzle. And for me, I feel like the biggest thing is just getting here healthy. And I would be training for Comrades, before this, but they moved Comrades to August, so it gave me the opportunity to fully focus on Western States this year. And, I've spent the past year just really focused on my health, and I felt like if I had my health, that the fitness and the preparation would come with that. And so I'm really grateful to be coming back to Western States for the first time being fully healthy and prepared.
Yeah, I think when Dylan and I went to bed at last year's Western States, I think our assumption was that you had dropped out, that we did not know where you were. And then I came back to the stage to do Golden Hour, and you had just gotten off the stage for an interview. I heard that you took a really long nap out there last year, and I think we were all just so impressed with your ability to just stick it out last year and make it all the way to the track. And I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about that experience and what it means now coming back this year, having gotten that kind of monkey off your back, ready to really compete.
Gosh, last year I have a whole box with all my medals and awards that I've gotten in my career, and I have my Comrades Marathon gold medal right beside my Western States belt buckle. So, that's how much it means to me, to be able to finish this race. It took everything I had, and I can reflect back on other races I've had, and sometimes it takes everything you got to get to that finish line, and it really meant a lot to me, and knowing what Pam Smith and Casey Lichtig, they've had rough days, and they're both have won Western States, and I look to them, as role models for me that, I can come back and be the most improved runner here. So we'll see how much I can improve by. But yeah, obviously last year, I came into the race with this iron issue, and I knew it might potentially be a rough day. And I think I laid down for 8 hours during the race. And then I finally woke up at Rucky Chucky, and I think they said I had an hour and a half until the cutoff. So I was trying to beat that cutoff there at the last bit, and I realized I've only got 22 miles. I could do that. So yeah, I gotta give credit to my pacer that I had last year. They were really concerned about me getting back out there and not sure about my health and how I was doing. And yeah, I got to give credit to him. He got me back going, and I just clicked off those miles, and I probably had the biggest smile on my face, just those last 22 miles and coming into the finish. I was just so grateful to finally make it.
Amazing. And ever since Western States last year, you've been on an absolute heater. Incredible win, course record at Javelina 100. You've set a few new world records since then. What do you attribute to this incredible streak of world-class performance that you've been on in the last 12 months?
So after Western States, and I knew I had this high iron issue going into the race, and I didn't know how long it was going to take me to fix that, but I started working with a dietitian, and she was the one that got me back going. It felt like within a month, I think it was August or so, and changing my diet, I started to feel like this inferno inside of me building, and I finally had my energy and got my mojo back, and I could just feel it inside of me. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm starting to finally feel like myself again. And I mean, I think I had a couple of more setbacks in the fall, and I'm the type of person that, you knock me down, I get back up. And so I've just kind of rolled with those punches and went into last fall. I think I had food poisoning in September. I had a bout with food poisoning in September, and I overcame that. And then I went into the Holmen 100, probably steam coming out of my ears. From all the setbacks I had last year. I mean, I was just so determined that I wanted to get back here, and I just ran with a jetpack on.
Yeah, I got to watch you at Javelina, and it was really, really impressive to watch you come around with a lightsaber into the finish line. Kind of looking at your spring building into this race too, right? Like, this is a mountain-esque ultra. We know we've got the high country. You've experienced the high country now a couple times. You've run a lot of road and kind of track style ultras this spring, and I'm wondering what else is going on in your training to give you the confidence to come here and be like, I've got the high country, I'm going to get to those cruiser miles later.
Yeah, definitely. I felt like going into the spring, I think I talked to Dylan here back in February, and I kind of felt like, because my speed keeps coming back, and I felt like I needed to have a road-focused spring, and that was really essential coming in here. I felt like I kind of got to come in with the preparation that I would normally do for comrades, but I got to do a bit more trail running. And we lived in Arizona last year, and then moved back to Oklahoma in the wintertime. And I felt like living in Arizona was good for me because it got me on more technical terrain, and I felt like I kind of got my bearings and got more comfortable with controlling my body. Obviously, I have the leg speed, but I tend to sometimes just go all out on the trails, and I just kind of fly everywhere. And so I feel like living in Arizona was really good for me because it learned how to control my body, and I felt like when I went into Javelina, I had that confidence and that control. And so I've just carried that on into the springtime here, doing more road-focused training, but also more trail. And then I went to the camp, and I felt like that was really my opportunity to connect with the trail. And so I actually did 2 training camps here. I did the training camp here a month ago, and then we did a second training camp where I got to go up to the high country part and get my experience, get my bearings down with the kind of more rugged mountain terrain up there. And I feel different this time. I feel like I've got that control, I've got that confidence. I know how to hold back. Everybody's like, oh, she goes out too fast. And I feel like, I've ran at Javelina, I've ran the world record. I've learned how to pull my reins back when I run 100 miles because I tend to go out too hard sometimes. I want to be competitive with the men. And I've learned to run more with the flow of being a woman. Basically, women tend to run with a bit more control, and I've kind of tapped into that more. And I feel like I've learned how to control my speed, and it's allowed me to be stronger later in the races, and that's kind of what I'm going to be channeling this year, is trying to run with that sense of control and not let myself get too crazy, feeling like I have to be up with the top men. Just feel like I can run my own race and run within control.
Awesome. So kind of expanding on that a little bit, Camille, in your career, I don't think it's controversial to say that your best results have come in sort of track and road races. You've just talked about how you cultivate that connection and that comfort with the trail. How have you been able to cultivate that here at Western States, and how important were those little training camps to help you feel that connection to this beautiful slice of single track going all the way to Auburn?
Yeah, I definitely feel like, I feel like I had, coming from a marathon background, I felt like I had to be more of a road racer coming into the sport, but I see myself evolving into more of a trail runner. And I feel like Western States is the type of course that kind of caters more to the road runners, that if I can just work through that high country part that is a little bit outside my comfort zone, and get to Robinson Flat and onwards, that I felt so great at the training camp. I felt like I really could find my flow, and then going back up to the high country part, and like I said, I feel like I have more confidence now on technical terrain, and it's kind of like a kid learning how to ride a bike. I mean, all of us, we probably like stumbled and, fell off the bike several times, and, and then there's kind of that one magical moment where we take off on the bike, and I'm kind of, feeling that. I feel like there's going to be that magical moment, and, and I'm feeling it this year, so.
Yeah, Corrine and I remember on the live stream last year made the comment that if Camille could just get to Forest Hill in contact, she would be a dangerous person to be, chasing you down in those last 40 miles. So I hope you can do that this year.
I definitely, having done the training camp and, just seeing how flowy, I didn't realize that the course was, it's very runnable from, even Robinson Flat, going through the canyons, hitting Forest Hill and onwards. I think my health has been compromised in the past, and I just didn't realize like how flowy the course is. It's like my perception of the course has really changed, especially having done the training camp now, and I'm just like, all I gotta do is, get through that high country part and, get to Robinson Flat and onwards, and, this is kind of my bread and butter, so.
Yeah, we're very hopeful to get to see that on the live stream this year. I think in years past, you've kind of, which I think is exciting to have women come into this race, just like Hayden Hawks being like, I'm here to win. I'm here to compete. I'm here to, Jim being like, I'm here for the course record. I'm here to go sub 14 or whatever it might be. In years past, you've come into this race being like with an obvious time goal in mind, right? Like, this is what I would like to run on this course. This is what I think I can run on this course. With your experience last year and also that experience of being able to like rein some of that in, I'm wondering, has your mentality shifted? Is that time goal still present, or is it going to be a little bit more about tactics and really getting the absolute best out of yourself, whatever it is on the day?
Yeah, I feel like I always focus internally on my own effort and trying to get the most out of myself on the day and with the conditions and pushing through all those challenges that you face in an ultra. I have a time goal in my head. I think
what is it?
I've beaten several very good men, various, I think, was it Javelina? I ran 14:03 there, and
fourth overall there at Javelina, 14:03, a ridiculous time.
So, just knowing that, and knowing, the kind of the leg speed that I have, from the roads. I faced some of the trail runners at the Jackpot 100. I think we had Alex Nichols there, and Mark Hammond, and Arlen Glick. They're all trail runners, and I beat all of them.
One overall and set a new world record in the process, no big deal.
Yeah, so I can't let, me being a woman, beating the men, I can't let the men be a limitation to what I can do. I have to focus internally on my own effort and getting the most out of myself. And, I don't want people to be saying, oh, she's going out too fast. She can't keep this up. I'm just like anybody else out there trying to get the most out of myself. I know my own effort. I know how to run 100 miles. I know what 100 miles feels like, whether I'm on road or trail, and I'm just going to be channeling that out there, and I want you guys to believe in me.
Yes, the mindset of a champion. So let's expand on that a little bit. Of course, you've dropped out of this race twice. You slogged out a 27.5-hour proud finish last year, and you've made it public that you're going to keep coming back until you figure it out, which I think is illustrative of your personal mindset and your sort of champion disposition. Talk about that perseverance, talk about that determination to keep coming back until you get it right.
Well, my husband Connor, I'm not sure, I think he's over there on the sideline. He's had 2 dreams that I won this race, so I feel like the vision is there. It's already been dreamed. He dreamed that I beat the sun to the finish line, which is around 16 hours. So I have this vision in my head that, I think that's possible. And people have doubted me, when I ran 12 hours for 100 miles, going for 14 hours at Javelina, people doubted me. They didn't believe that was possible. And I'm somebody that, makes the impossible possible. And I want to believe in the dream. I believe in Connor's dreams. He believed I won Comrades before I won Comrades. And so when I went into that race, I believed it was my destiny to win, and I still feel that here at Western States, that I'm going to keep showing up until I make the dream a reality.
I got chills during that.
Yes.
I hope someone beats the sun in this year too. Kind of building off of that and building off of your experience from last year, has there been, and obviously the health stuff and the dietitian seems to really be turning things around. I'm wondering if there's anything else in your training that you've changed or that you've really focused in on for this specific race.
Yeah, I mean, I finally got to do the training camp. I feel like I'm going into this race with more preparation, more confidence, more control in my body on trails. I'm just feeling that connection more going into this race. I mean, normally I would be focused on like comrades and I've had some setbacks with my health, but yeah, I feel like I'm finally going into this race healthy, just focusing on my health and feeling good. My body structurally feels healthy. I've done a lot of strength training, on top of all the training that I do. And I feel like, my body is just healthy. I feel good. My energy's good. And I just got to persevere through every challenge that's thrown my way. I mean, no matter what ultra that you run, I mean, there's always challenges that you have to work through. And, I've really got to, just focus on continuing to move forward. I remember when I was running the high country section here 2 weeks ago, I had my mantra was forward is progress. Forward is progress. And I just had to keep working through the terrain and, have this positive mindset. Forward is progress. Keep putting one foot in front of the other. And, that's kind of what helped me get through that high country section. And I think that's a good mindset to have for anybody.
Love that. Forward is progress. Camille, there's a lot of people in the chat here on YouTube who say that they believe in you and who are really rooting for you. One question I want to pull out of the chat here, and it's relevant to this race, of course. Your main sponsor, Hoka, is the title sponsor of the race. They're asking about your shoes of choice for the 100-mile traverse here on Saturday. Maybe you're going to be changing your shoes. Give us a glimpse into your equipment as you sort of are starting to plan those things now.
So I was really set on wearing the Hoka Tecton X, which is what I wore at the training camp, and I think I'm on my third pair of Hoka Tectons. And then I went and saw the high country here 2 weeks ago, and I realized it's a little bit more rugged, and I know like a lot of athletes sometimes change their shoes to suit the terrain, and I decided to go with the Hoka Challenger. Which has a little bit more stability to it, and I think that will. I've been training in that shoe now, and I feel like that's going to give me the stability to work through the high country part, while also having the versatility to work through the more runnable sections. It's a really great road shoe as well, and I feel like it gives me that stability combined with the versatility for the more runnable stuff.
I was going to say, I think you cannot talk about Western States without talking about the heat. So we're just going to touch on the heat real quick before we let you go today. And I get this picture in my mind for whatever reason that you love the heat. That's my impression. That's what I kind of witnessed at Javelina. It was a fairly warm day out there, and I'm wondering, is the heat on your mind, or are you feeling pretty good about it?
I feel really good about the heat. Just coming here yesterday, it's like I had to put on layers and an extra jacket. I was like shivering, and we were down in, I think, Rockland, and I think it was like 97 degrees, and I was actually shivering down there. So I feel like my heat preparation is really good. Coming from Oklahoma, I'm used to high humidity, and so coming here and having that dry heat feels really, really good to me. And I feel like having raced Javelina, because Javelina was hot and it's exposed, there's no trees, I feel like I got really comfortable with how my body should feel running in the heat, and I feel like we really dialed in our heat strategy for working through the heat and hydration. It was, I can just, think about like, everybody talks about like evaporative cooling and like stuffing ice everywhere. And I felt like when I, working at Javelina, I found that maybe 2.5 laps into the race that I just wanted to pour an ice pitcher on my head. And it wasn't so much about the evaporative cooling, but just that it kind of gave me a positive mindset to, take it from one aid station to the next, pour the ice pitcher on my head, and it just, just kind of perked me up. So I felt like, I just have to take an aid station at a time and just kind of working with what are my personal needs. Do I need more water? Pour the ice pitcher on my head, get a little bit of soda. I feel like javelina, just really helped me to work through that and knowing how my body feels, not like pushing. I think the biggest mistake that I made at javelina the previous year was trying to push in the heat. And at some point, it just breaks you down. And so I learned to run with more control, paying attention to how my muscles feel and running with more control in the heat. And I feel like I've really got that dialed in from having done javelina. So.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Camille. I think speaking for Corrine and myself, we hope you put on a great show for us on Saturday so that we can provide great entertainment for our live viewers on the live stream. All the best to you. Big round of applause for Camille Herron.
Thank you very much. You got to believe in me.
Yes,
we do.
We believe in you. We'll be back in just a few minutes with last place, third place finisher, Mr. Drew Holmen. Stick with us. Okay, we are back, everybody. Welcome to the 2022 Western States 100 Pre-Race Live Interview Show. We are joined by our fourth guest, Mr. Drew Holmen from Boulder, Colorado. Drew, welcome back to Western States. It's good to see you. You and I are buddies. I've had the pleasure of watching you develop into a world-class athlete since your earliest days as a trail runner. You landed on the podium in your first try at Western States last year.
Intimidating.
Man, what a day it was. And we'll get to, sort of the aftermath of what happened there after your podium finish. But maybe just with 12 months of perspective, tell us how you're feeling about your 100-mile debut where you landed on the podium here at Western States.
Yeah. Is this good? Is this what we're doing? First off, Dylan, Corrine, thank you for everything that you both have been doing for this community. It's been really fun to watch the amount of coverage and just, we're kind of up-leveling as a sport, which is super fun. But last year came out, had an incredible 100-mile debut. About as good as you possibly could imagine.
You broke your pacers.
I broke my pacers. I also broke myself pretty hard. But yeah, I had one of those magical days where I just, felt incredibly inspired by the community. The fitness was there. And yeah, I had a magical day. It was one of those days I remember Tyler talking about after Western States and his experience about how you almost can't even dream of that outcome. And then it happens. And yeah, just felt really lucky to be here. And I'm excited to be back. Like this is a really special weekend and time. So
I think when you came across that finish line, it was very apparent that you had wrung every drop of Drew out of yourself. I think you're kind of stumbling. We got you in a chair. We didn't interview you very long because we were like, this guy's got to go to medical. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about, do you remember the last 20 miles? Like, can you talk about, there was movement in the men's field in the last bit of the race. Like, what did it mean to really, like, in a very real way, pull everything out of yourself?
Yeah, so I think it started, Forest Hill, I picked up my good friend Patty O'Leary, and we had, I just was like, Patty, for those people that know Patty, he's this incredible Irish scientist, ultra runner, incredibly accomplished, and I was like, Patty, your only job is to just tell me stories for the next 20 miles, and so Patty just chatted for the next 2 hours. And so that was awesome. And then I picked up Fernando at the river, and we just got way too hyped. And so for the next 10 miles, Tyler and I were kind of going back and forth. And I probably burned way too many matches from 10 or from 80 to 90. And then it was that last 10 miles, Corrine. That was something I had never experienced before.
You were full on stumbling on the track.
Oh yeah.
So take us inside that battle with Tyler Green, who of course is coming back as the top returning finisher from 2021. You guys spent some time together after you exploded your pacers. Maybe give us a glimpse into what that was like, just sort of duking it out with another fantastic champion of the sport so late into the race, and how you guys were able to get the most out of each other.
Yeah, I think Tyler and I have now had that experience a couple of times. We ran Chuckanut together and got to spend 10 miles working together there. And yeah, I think it was just one of those moments where you get late in a race and you both work together, but you also are able to push each other to that next level. And I don't think I would have ever been able to extract what I was able to extract from myself. If it wasn't for running with Tyler, for coming out of Hal's aid station and, all of a sudden passing Hayden and being okay, I guess I'm doing better than other people. And it was definitely that description that everyone talks about how it doesn't matter what happens in these races until those last 10 or 20 miles, because, a 8-minute mile can become a 16-minute mile, can become a 30-minute mile. But I just kept having those moments where I was I'm still moving up in the field, and Tyler was always just a little bit ahead of me, and so I kept digging. But yeah, it was a magical day.
There's this great photo, and this might be too much inside baseball, but there's this great photo from the med tent anti-doping zone, and you're actively puking into a garbage can, and your pee's in the cup, and it is not the right color. And so publicly we kind of know what transpired post Western States a little bit, and I'm just wondering if you can talk us through, recovery, getting, I don't know, that you asked a lot of your body, and just kind of wondering how you're feeling going into this year's race, knowing kind of the toll you took last year.
Yeah, totally. Great question. I think the biggest thing for me is that, yes, it took a lot out of me, but also there were so many learnings that came from, that was the first time I'd run 100 miles. And so made a bunch of mistakes in the way that you do when you're a novice at something. And so, yes, I dug myself a hole, but all the learnings that I had from that have put me in a place where I feel really, really excited to toe the line. And, hopefully I don't have to go that deep, or that the body has adapted a bit from that experience. But yeah, I'm just excited to be able to race again. And I think that, everyone says that your 100-mile debut is a little bit different than every other time you run it. And I'm just meditating on the fact that, like, this is a different race. Like, you know, every time we toe the line, like, yes, it might be the same course, but it is a completely different experience. It's a completely different race. And so, yeah, I'm excited for a good day.
So what are those learnings, though, Drew? I mean, for you, coming in and finishing on the podium in your 100-mile debut at one of the most important races in the world, it doesn't leave a lot of room for improvement, but you're alluding to the fact that you learned a lot post-hospitalization after last year's race. What are some of the learnings? What do you hope to improve?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, I distinctly remember, for those folks who know him, Topher Gaylord. I was running with Topher and Tim Tollefson last year at camp, and Topher was talking to us about his experiences at this race, you know, absolute legend. And he just goes, don't get in any pissing matches. Like, it's too long of a race. And, like, I hit the river and was like, I'm going to break Tyler. I'm just going to run every step of Green Gate, and I'm just going to break him. And then I got to Green Gate, and I turned around, and he was just chipper, and I was like, I've broken myself. I've done it. And so I think that it's like learnings like that, where there's just so many miles, and it is 100% a race against ourselves and where our bodies are at in those moments. And so I'm just excited to really kind of just like take a step back, where it's a race and the competitive drive is there, but at the same time it's like a journey to get to Auburn, and just embracing that journey.
So while you're now kind of a Boulder guy, right? Like that's your home. You're kind of a Boulder guy.
Boulder guy.
Yeah. You
Boulder boys coming
Boulder
to
bro.
Instagram soon.
The Boulder boys. I mean, in a real way, Dylan kind of alluded to this. I feel like your trail running was born in the Bay Area. So, I mean, we're not in the Bay, you know, we're in Tahoe, but I'm wondering, you know, what does it mean to you to get to come back to a race like this that has to be near and dear to your heart?
Oh, it's just the best. I remember, I mean, I picked up, you like run into Forest Hill, and like the entire SFRC community is there. And this, I mean, Western States was the first 100-miler I had ever spectated, and I remember coming, it must have been 2017, and just being enamored by the environment and the culture and the community that surrounds this race. And so it does feel a bit like coming home. And I remember running out of Forest Hill last year with Patty, one of my best friends, the person that I like fell in love with this sport alongside, and just feeling incredibly emotional. And I actually like got teary as I like took that left turn. And like that's a good reminder of what this sport is about and why I love it. And it also is like allows me to take a step back from like, yes, I did take third at this race last year, but success at a 100-miler and the love of this sport is so much bigger than any performance. It's about, you know, those relationships that we build and the community that surrounds it. So.
Love it, Drew. Thank you so much for saying that. Beautifully articulated. You and I went for a run in Boulder a couple of months ago, and we were talking about your training, and I think this will be illuminating for maybe other young athletes out there who want to come here and finish on the podium like you have. You don't do a crazy amount of volume in your training. You have a full-time job outside of being a professional athlete. Talk about how you manage that training load, how you come here with the confidence that you can compete with the best, even though you're not training a heroic amount.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and it's important to acknowledge that like an effective training plan can look very different for different athletes. And so, you know, I've been working with David Roche for many years now, and I put a ton of trust and respect in his philosophy, and we've just taken a very patient approach. I don't have the runner background that allows me to jump in and run 120 miles a week. And similarly, like I work a full-time job, so there's just not, you know, the body knows stress, not miles, as David oftentimes says, and so we're balancing, you know, getting enough volume to be ready for a race like this while also coming to the start line feeling fresh and excited and just inspired to go to the well and to work hard. And so, you know, I think my confidence comes from the fact that, you know, it's just running. And like when you get down to it and, you know, yes, it's not a heroic amount, but it's still 80 to 100 miles a week. So it's low in the grand scheme of 100 milers, but it's still a lot of miles.
It's still a lot of miles. I'm wondering, is there anything, given that David took you through last cycle and is taking you through this cycle, is there anything that you all have changed kind of going into this year, or tweaked or adjusted just based on what you learned last time around?
Yeah, I think we added like a really big vert weekend post camp. That was basically just the quad tenderizer. And so yeah, just trying to a bit more intentional work around getting ready for all the downhill that we'll have on Saturday. But otherwise, other than that, I mean, we also were very cognizant of, like, I took third last year, and so you don't really want to change too many things. And I think a huge part of my performance last year was just a complete willingness to kind of go on a bit of a quest and dig deep. And, some of that is just feeling really excited about the race and the day, and less about, like, did you put in 130-mile weeks.
So last year you executed just a surgical race, sort of running through the field in the later miles to land on the podium. I think that would come with a bit of temptation potentially to assert yourself a little bit more, race a little bit more aggressively here in your second time around. Talk about your strategy. How are you envisioning the race on Saturday, and where do you want to be in the field? How do you think you're going to sort of go about manifesting the race of your dreams?
I can't give away my secrets. No, I mean, my this is a bit of a joke, but, like, my strategy is to, like, thank every single volunteer out there on my way to the well, and, like, if that means I'm in 20th come Forest Hill, like, that's where I am. If that means I'm in 5th at Forest Hill, I'm definitely not going to be off the front. I'll let others, set that pace, and then we'll compete later in the race.
I think my final thing, this was I told you before we got on this that I was texting with one of our friends last night, and she wanted to remind me that you turned 30 this week, and I'm wondering if with that bump up, a new decade, if you feel like you're walking into this race older, wiser, ready for a quest.
Been on a 6-day bender, it's really laying the base.
When you're
for
30,
Western
those
States.
benders don't come easy anymore, do they?
No, I mean, I think the biggest thing I'm acknowledging is that I no longer get to be considered like a young gun, which is a badge of honor I've been wearing for many years now. So, no, I think with turning 30, it's just an acknowledgement of, like, trying to really meditate and focus on the things that really matter around this experience and this sport, which is so much more about people and community and the environment and everything that Craig does with this race and the board of directors at Western States do for this race. And just feeling extra lucky that we still get to go out there and compete. Like, it's still a race, and there's, like, I get so much joy out of the experience of competition. But being able to do that in an environment that is, like, just surrounded by people I love. So
Awesome, Drew. Maybe last question for you. Last year was a breakthrough for you. I think a lot of people heard your name for the first time during Western States weekend. Of course, like I mentioned at the beginning, I've known you for a long time. Everybody who knew you knew that it was possible. Corrine and myself on the live stream last year were telling everybody, look out for Drew Holmen. This year, you're a known quantity, man. There's a little bit of pressure that comes with that. I mean, you're doing an interview here before the race. Like, you weren't part of this last year. Talk about just, like, your progression as an athlete and whether or not you're really feeling like you're hitting your stride in your professional career as an athlete.
Yeah, I think, thankfully there's still, like, the field is so stacked this year that, like, I'm still a bit of a dark horse, I think, which is exciting. And I think that also just speaks to, like, Jim's not here, but there are 10, 15 different guys that could all win this race. And I have a ton of respect for, the men and women that I will be racing against on Saturday. But to answer your question about, development as a professional runner, as an ultra runner, I don't think there's been a grand plan. And so I think it's just mostly been taking it day by day and step by step and race by race. But having these moments of realizing that it's possible. I think first time I ran Way Too Cool was one of those moments. When I ran TNF 50 back in 2019, and I raced from 15th up to 4th and was 30 seconds back from 3rd. It started to plant the seed that yes, it was possible to have these great days. And last year was really solidified that. And before the race, David sent me a text the night before, and you're kind of in that antsy, anxious, excited state of mind. And he was just truly believe that it's possible. And I think being able to really believe that is an exciting place to be. And, it's 100 miles, so you can believe that and then puke your guts out. And so also acknowledging there's only so much that we can control in a race that's this long is this hot.
Beautiful, Drew. Thank you so much for joining us. A big round of applause for Drew Holmen, everybody. Drew, good luck this weekend. Thanks so much for joining us. Next up, the great Brittany Peterson. Stick around.
Thank you, Dylan. Thank you, Corrine.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. A little change of plans here. We are joined now by Cody Lind. Brittany Peterson, unfortunately, had something come up this morning, so had to cancel her interview. No big deal. That happens sometimes. And so we will jump right to the end. This is our last interview of the day, or I'm sorry, of just the morning session. Yes, just the morning session, only halfway through the day now. And we are joined by the awesome Cody Lind, last year's 4th place finisher. Cody, welcome back to Western States, buddy. How you feeling 12 months removed from what was probably the race of your life last year?
Oh, it is so good to be here and to be back here and be top 10 last year, and just to join this party once again is something that I've dreamed of, but to repeat again and to have the chance to kind of talk about all of it with Corrine and Dylan is pretty spectacular.
It was a pretty interesting end to the men's race. There's a lot of movement. There were people falling off and people moving up, and I'm just wondering if you can walk us through what it felt like kind of in that Forest Hill to the finish zone where things were really, I feel like, happening in the men's race.
Yeah, I know with this race, you got to set yourself up well from Forest Hill to the finish. Just about any year, and then last year being a really hot year, well, it's looking similar this year. I knew you kind of get in hunt mode and things can happen, and they can happen really fast, but you have to have the leg turnover. And, you know, to be honest, I wasn't feeling 100% by that time, but it was just enough to keep the hunt mode going and keep picking everyone off throughout the race and work my way up the field.
Cody, I want to hear more about last year's race and how you were able to execute so well there in the second half. But I think first, just to set the stage, especially for our audience who maybe didn't follow the live stream last year or who don't know your personal story, it's a really special one. This race is about much more than just competition here. Your family is a multi-generational presence and influence on this race. So talk about the Lind family and what the significance of Western States is for you guys.
You know, Western States, it's way more than a race for me. I've been coming here most of my life and come up on Wednesday with my grandfather, who was the head medical director for many years. And he passed away in 2016, but I know he would be very proud of me being here. But something that I kind of look back on is we'd come up on Wednesday before Western States, and it'd be this type of setting where I'd get to meet all the people and go through the pamphlet and look at the top 10. And I mean, I had no clue, but I just recognized names, and it would be year after year of, you know, Scott Jurek, AJW, Hal Corner, and the names would go. And to now be there, it's pretty cool. But yeah, it just means so much more. I've only done this race once, but I feel like with some of the experience I've had being out on the course with my grandfather, my dad, pacing, it's just so special to be back here. It's a family reunion, not only with my family, but the whole Western States itself.
Just quickly, Corrine, I wanted to share an anecdote from last year. When you finished on the track, Corrine and I were there to greet you. We were both heavily emotional. I've got the goosebumps going again, just remembering it. That. God, it was so special. Your father, who's here in the audience, shot the shotgun to start the race last year. Craig Thornley handed me that shotgun shell to give to you on the track. I feel like I'm about to burst into tears talking about this. Just talk about that experience of having the race of your life, finishing 4th place, and then the culmination of being handed this shotgun shell to commemorate it.
Yeah, and as we're talking, I have chills right now. It was so special, and from No Hands Bridge to the finish, I've just pictured that my whole life, and knowing that I had the race of my life and going onto that track and the stadium and hearing my name announced, and not only having a great result, but then the shotgun shell. Well, I'll be honest, I have right on my desk at home the shotgun shell, my race bracelet, and the buckle, and it hasn't moved since I got home last year. And I look at that just about every day and think of all the memories and the goals ahead as well.
I think we also joked before this that we had your dad on last year and we didn't have you on last year, so this was kind of us paying you back a little bit, bringing you onto the show. But I think, you got that M4 bib. You're on the start line this year, not with a different number. You've got that special bib going, and I'm wondering, How is your mindset going into this race? How are you feeling about wearing that distinctive M4?
Yeah, I mean, to have that is something I've dreamed of and have really wanted, but it's still a 100-mile race, and I'm looking at it, yes, I had a great year last year. This is a whole new race, very competitive field, and focusing on what I can do throughout this race in order to have the race that I want and to put myself in position at the river, at Green Gate, and then I think that's where it's key in this race. Do well through the canyons, stay really cool, but it's a completely new race, but it is pretty darn special to have M4.
So, but what are some of the things that you could do better? Obviously, it was probably the race of your life to this point, and you look back with, I'm sure, a lot of satisfaction, but it's the nature of being an athlete to nitpick and find places where we can improve. What are some of those things?
Constantly nitpicking these races. And I remember within the first week just looking back and putting a list together, what can you do better? And I've said it time and time again, but from Forest Hill to the finish, you can make up even more time. Yes, that's where I had a good section, but there's more time to be had. And I look at some of the splits and some of the things that Tim Tweetmeyer had done, and growing up watching him and what he could do really from the river to the finish, and I know there can be more that can be done even faster in that section.
Yeah, you can really turn on the afterburners there if you're ready for it, and that's what Tim did, I think, every single year. Looking at kind of your training from last year, your training from this year, knowing your experience at the race last year, was there anything that you all changed or at least focused in on when it came to getting really prepared for Western States?
Yeah, this year I didn't have to run 100K in January to get a golden ticket. So, and it's interesting, when you finish top 10, you know a year in advance that you're back in Western States, so you start prepping really early. But consistency, really working on strength type of training, I would say that has been one of the biggest things for me, is even more consistent with strength. Yes, you're putting in the miles, but what can the little things that might not be the most exciting things in training, but what can all the little things that you're going to do that'll build up to race day? So I'd say consistency and really race specific, and not having to do very many races before this one.
One of the things I'm curious about with you, Cody, is that you sort of come from a skyrunning background, shorter courses, steeper, more technical. You got your golden ticket last year at Bandera, which is more of a runnable 100K race. Of course, you finished 4th place here last year, another long but runnable race. And it seems like potentially you found your calling or found your niche in these longer, more runnable races. But I'm also curious about your development. You're still really young. How do you think about your development as an athlete? And maybe looking back at your skyrunning days, how did that help you to develop into a long course racer?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, at age 18, I was ready to do Western States, but I knew, listening to my grandfather and being at this race, it takes a lot on the human body, and I was kind of buying my time, and I felt like some of the technical stuff was really fun, and I kind of excelled at that, and really focus on the shorter stuff. What can I do in 50K up to 50 mile, but really look at that, and then eventually build it up. And for whatever reason, it was probably the COVID year, 2020, I decided to jump up distance with the 100K at Bandera and see how things would go. And eventually that got me to Western States. But I've always said, I think some of the longer stuff that's more technical. Well, in the big picture, Western States is pretty dang runnable, and it went really well. So now I'm kind of in this pickle of what am I going to excel at? But I think really both, and the sky running has really helped on all of that.
I'm going to go back to that M4 bib again, and I think that it's just interesting going into the race last year, kind of being like, I don't know what to expect from myself. I don't know, are you facing any expectation, or is it confidence that you're going into the race with this year now that you've had that experience at Western States?
Absolutely. I mean, having a year under your belt, knowing what to expect in the race and having that firsthand experience is huge. That being said, I think you can put a lot more pressure, and I feel like I put a lot more pressure on myself in these coming weeks, just because you know you've been at the top of that field. But it's a new year and plenty of competition with 20, 25 guys that females as well that can just explode on race day. And I think it's just a whole new day, and you have to remember that it's a completely different race and focus on what you can do.
So talk about your season so far. You said that you haven't had to do a 100K race, but give us a glimpse into your training, your preparation, any competitions that you've had, and how you think that set you up for another successful run here in 2022.
A lot of my training has been done solo, and there's been a lot of training out here based out of Forest Hill, Michigan Bluff on the course. And a lot of that is just to get in heat and get in the environment of Western States. But I did do a race in March, which was way too cool, 50K, and that's a fast race. And I would say I had an average, an okay day. It wasn't anything spectacular for me, but I felt like it was something I could build off. Everything was healthy, and then just put together a few more really good blocks as I let in, both with running, strength training, and the heat side of things as well.
I think this is a question that came up a little bit last year. You know, the gun's going to go off. Sometimes plans go out the window. But I'm wondering, I kind of divide the race into three big sections. You know, you got the high country, you have the canyons, and then you've got the runnable, fun kind of marathon plus at the end. And I'm wondering if you have a mantra for the race or mantra for those sections. Like, what are you going to be telling yourself as you move through those sections of the race?
Yeah, from the start to Robinson Flat, I'll tell myself just kind of calm and collective. There's a lot of energy, and you're finally going. And the best part is when you get to the escarpment. Yes, you have an amazing sunrise, but then you start going on the trail. You're in the high country, and you can just really settle into the race. And get to Robinson, and then start prepping for the canyons. And it's all about cool and consistency. Consistency not only with your running and hiking out of the canyons, but with your fueling and hydration as well. But you got to stay cool through the canyons and get to Forest Hill to pick up a pacer, and that's kind of game on hunt mode, and start working your way towards the finish and see how things are going, and hopefully finish really strong.
Cody, I'm going to go to a question here in our YouTube chat that I think is really awesome and that might elicit another emotional type of response for Corrine and myself. But it's any favorite memories with your family, your grandpa, your father here at Western States beyond your fantastic fourth place finish last year? Maybe give us a glimpse into your childhood years here at the race and some of those special memories.
Yeah, I mean, really, it was what I really remember is coming up here. We'd get up here for all the medical conferences. I'd be with my grandpa, and we'd be in these medical conferences all day Wednesday, some of Thursday, and I had no clue what anyone was talking about, but I was just kind of taking it all in and getting to hang out with everyone, go to lunch, and then we'd finally get it started, and I remember we'd go back, drop the motorhome off, and then start going out on the course, and it was pretty cool, I remember, because all the crews and everyone would have to get the shuttles or walk in, but we had the special access to go into the aid stations and just kind of do our thing, and always get a cheeseburger at Michigan Bluff. That was something that we just always done and kind of a Lind tradition. So
you're like 27, I think now. How many years have you spent here at the Western States 100?
I would say 22, 23 years.
27 years old. He's been here 22 times. Incredible. I feel like I've been here forever, and I probably only got like half of that. So, anything else?
I think the big thing here is, I'm excited to watch the race play out. I'm sure you're excited to be part of all that energy out there. Is there anything that you are thinking about as far as, not burning matches early? People keep saying over and over again, which I love, like the men's field this year keeps saying, it's a new race. It's a brand new day. We're excited to see what comes. Is there anything that you're taking forward with you along that vein of like how you're going to channel that?
Yeah, it's really focusing on what is in your control. It could be hot. There could be some cloud cover. You don't know, but that's out of your control. And all the stuff that was in my control was the training and preparation for this. And I want to use that to my best ability on race day and really be smart and focus on the sections that I really know. And for me, getting to kind of Michigan Bluff area, it's kind of the home country for me, and at times I've spent a lot of time in that area, and just really can't wait to get in that spot, and it'll be nice and hot and kind of be in the zone and in the race. And at that point, just do the best we can and take care of the body.
Cody, I love your attitude, man. It's a privilege to have you here on the pre-race live interview show this year. You earned it, and Corrine and myself are very much looking forward to watching you hopefully have another fantastic performance here on Saturday. A big round of applause for Cody Lind, everybody. And that concludes our morning session here today. Thank you all for joining us live and digitally on YouTube. A quick reminder for those who are watching us online, please smash the subscribe button. I've been told it's very, very important. It will help us in our race day live stream operation. It's very, very important that you subscribe to the Western States 100 YouTube channel. Corrine and myself are going to take a little bit of a break, but we are going to be back here at 3 p.m. We've got an awesome lineup of guests this afternoon, starting at 3 with Tyler Green, then Lucy Bartholomew, Adam Peterman, Keely Henninger, Tim Tollefson, and Emily Hawgood. And then we are going to be back here, same time, same place tomorrow at 9 a.m. So you guys go have a great day, enjoy a nice run, bask in the sunshine, and come back and see us again at 3 p.m. Peace out, everybody.